For this round of the formal observations, we're looking at standard one, which is continuous improvement. And all of you had goals in the continuous improvement area. So in a moment, we're going to take a look at your actual OPES goals. But I want to know, did you get a chance to look at the rubric to figure out which of the components under one you wanted to focus this observation on?
Yeah, so it's just one, it's not one or two?
Yeah, it's just one for us.
I mean, so on my OPES goal, I had cited 1.2, leading process of setting, monitoring, and achieving specific and challenging goals that reflect high expectations for all students and staff. And under that, the specific goal that I had set for the school was around attendance, both for staff and for students. So, we could do that. 2.5 I had listed as our TBTs, and that work as well. So, I mean, either one would probably, in terms of 1.2, leading the process of setting, monitoring, achieving specific and challenging goals, I think would fit. I mean, you're looking for something, you're looking to see a meeting, an event, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, you could come in, you could observe our attendance team, you could come in and you could observe me working with one of our TPTs, and either one would be fine. Yeah,
and what we can do, and you're right, both of your goals really relate to 1.2. As a matter of fact, 1.2 is probably my favorite component in the OPES because I feel like it's the crux of the work.
Yeah.
So
I picked 2.5, and I did that only because I felt like those were the two big areas I was going to be pushing this year, and I already used 1.2.
Yeah.
I needed a second
goal.
Something
to do, yeah. So we can actually, for the purpose of this, we can look at your first goal through the lens of 1.2, even though it does align with 2.
TBT.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because with Mr. Hoover, I mean, you guys, with being the co-principalship, I know he's working more, I'm going to be observing more of the culture. We talked about some things with attendance and family and community engagement. And so this aspect, it'll be great to see some of the instructional stuff. So I'll make a note of that. All right, so you really just explained this, but if you can expound a little bit more, tell me why you focus specifically on this area when creating this first OPES goal.
Well, our goal continues to be to raise the academic achievement levels here at East Tech. And, the data shows that one of the biggest drivers for that are teacher-based teams. It's an incredibly effective lever for moving a building. It's something that we had been doing for several years in my academy, but it was not building-wide. So, we had a core of teachers that were familiar with the process. But this year, we wanted to both expand it building-wide and also align it a little more closely with the state's 5-step process. We had used a process that was taught to us by, they're based out in Colorado, I'm trying to think of their name. We had a consultant for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very similar process, but it was not exactly aligned. So I also wanted to move the building into better alignment with the state's process, which I thought would be useful for us in terms of like SIG and compliance. So that was an area where I decided I would take the lead in both the training and in monitoring of implementation. We've been doing it since the beginning of August. We did training at the beginning of the year. And I'll get some evidence also that I'll show you. So we started training it back in August. I actually have one of the teachers that are pretty proficient as well. Both people who've been with me and also one of my new people who presented to the Institute on TBTs. So we started way back in August with the training process, walking through exactly what it looks like. So we started with that. Our next meeting we calendared out, so all the way through the first semester, exactly who's presenting each week in preparation of Bridge Week. We identified the cycles, we talked about the assessment cycle, and then the teachers calendared out who's going to present each week, so we had a clear sense of responsibility. We did a sample TBT training where we showed them the template, and then we gave them a sample assessment and some sample data from last year, and we had them go out and go ahead and complete the form using the data, so they had practice using the process. And like I said, it was new. It was very new for some people, And for others, it was just rethinking the steps, you know, and just refining it a little bit to be in alignment with the state. And since then, we've been meeting on a weekly basis. So each week, each team, we have 7, the 4 cores, 2 elected teams, and self-contained. Each week, a different teacher presents. They all present in each cycle. So, you know, we give the interim between that and the next bridge week. Each team presents its data, develops its intervention plan. And then, you know, the 4th week is bridge week, where they work the plan. So when they come to the meeting, they're responsible for bringing this with page 1 filled out, bringing copies of their assessment. They walk the team through the assessment and through, you know, the breakdown, the tiers, and then the team helps them with step 2, step 3, and step 4. We noticed probably late September, early October that the teams were weak in step 3. And step 4, the specific steps they're going to take, and I think I've talked about this before. I'll find an example, one that was pretty basic. And this person didn't even get to that step. Trying to find a good basic one. Yeah, so here's one. And so their solution for all 4 tiers was reading circles. They differentiated slightly. I mean, one was getting a review game and doing work in stations. The other says intensive station work. My guess is if I went in, the stations would be one and the same. And you can see that they weren't very specific around who's going to be doing the implementation. So we did a PD then. So we did a PD about 3 weeks ago where we walked through, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, where we actually walked through some of the feedback that we've received and some of the things we've noticed, and around kind of where we're struggling, and around the need to differentiate the strategies for the tiers. And I had a pretty good example. One of our teams did a really nice job of using all the personnel. It was a 9th grade team where they had a city year, they had the intervention specialist, they had the gen ed teacher. And so they not only had stations where they differentiated activities, but they were also really purposeful in terms of assigning personnel. So, you know, one of the things we talked about was it's not just about the strategies, but it's also about thinking what are the strengths of the people on the team. You know, so one of the activities was it was really just needed a facilitator. So using City Year there was really appropriate because they don't need to have the content knowledge.
Yep.
You know, there was one where they were really talking about the importance of using transitions and transition words in your writing and thinking about the purpose behind that. That was more of a core teacher. You know, and then there was one that was just about identifying kind of general mood and tone from a piece of literature, a piece of text. And that was one the intervention specialist felt more comfortable doing. So, you know, they really broke it up not just by activity and by need, but also by who was strongest in that area. So it was a much different looking plan, and you can see this is just, I took a screenshot of their plan. It was a much more dense, and in fact, they revised this even further and added additional layers to it. But, I mean, you can just see the difference just at a glance between this and what I just showed you. So we talked about some of the strategies they used, and some of the ways in which they really tried to leverage what they knew about the kids and they knew about best practices to prepare them for the next assessment. And then we brainstormed as a group different strategies that they could use, and then they generated this.
Oh, great.
So they went, and in groups they presented out and they shared 3 or 4, you know, high impact strategies that you could use to, you know, work with concepts that students struggled with the first time. And then I printed this out and, you know, sent this to the staff, and then they've been using this in their TBTs as another tool that they can use. And we just thought it was important that they generate it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just one more thing I'm throwing at them, but they could see that this was their collective expertise that drove that. So that's kind of where we're at. I've not had a chance to put into the spreadsheet all the quarter 2 interim assessment scores, but I did look at a couple, and for example, the English team that we used as the example, you know, they had a proficiency gain of like 15 percentage points. So they showed substantial improvement. And it was the same thing with a couple of the other ones where I've really been taking some time to sit down. So, I think they're starting to see that the better the plan, the better the results, and that the more intentional they are with the plan and using that time, the better the students do on the assessment. So I think that, Bridge Week is one of the things that we've done this year that has definitely been it's been big. And the TBTs are the vehicle through which we're driving, preparation for that and implementation. And like I said when I was talking to you today, it's helped us too because it lets us monitor. And monitoring for us is always, like when we were at the meeting the other day, right? Like the time demands are so great, and we thought, I think coming into the year that it would be easier because we were going to retain the 2 APs and the 2 co-teachers, but we didn't really know CT3 when we were taking it on, and it actually has been pretty time-consuming both for us and for the APs. We made them coaches because we wanted to be connected to that process, and we wanted to be able to have those conversations. We can with our teacher coaches, but there's some questions I'm just not comfortable asking them because I don't want to put them in that spot where they're evaluated. That's not what they're supposed to be. But I can have an offline conversation with the AP and say, okay, so the real-time coaching, how does that translate? But I don't think Temujin and I realized how much time that was going to take. It's substantial. It's 2 days a week that we're essentially losing from each one. So it's like we only have 1 AP because 4 out of the 5 days, they're in coaching all day. They're not there to help work the halls. They're not there to help process incoming students. They're not there to help process the discipline. Today our Dean of Engagement started and our Campus Data Coordinator both. This is their first day. And that'll help. But, the monitoring piece, it's difficult. Like, it really requires some planning. And I think that this structure has really helped us because, it's not a question of when are you doing the plan. Like, we know when they're doing the plan. And we can specifically, I keep working with our team to make sure that, I purposely did 3 of my FAOs during Bridge Week. I did my first round of walkthroughs during Bridge Week, the previous Bridge Week. And when I do my next ones, it'll be, well, not the next one, I guess, because we can't do another one until after the break, but when I do my next walkthrough, it'll be during Bridge Week. The formal, now not the informal, but the formal, just because it reinforces for them like what we're doing in TBTs.
The connection of everything. Well, a few questions that came out here, and it's good with thinking about how you have all the artifacts from all the TBTs and just tracking that progress throughout the year. First, how are your TBTs structured? So, like, are they grade level teams? Who leads them?
Yes, so they're by core. We did grade levels last year, but this year we felt like we had enough in each department that we could run department level teams. The elected teams are not as organic. It's an awkward fit because they don't, they're all, a lot of them are CTE. And we tried to structure it so it's CTE, non-CTE, because we figured the CTE folks have some things in common. They tend to have, the same type of assessments and expectations. It's still an awkward fit. Those are our weak teams, for sure. And part of it's just they don't have the content knowledge. So when it comes time to help their colleagues strategize around what can I do to boost achievement, they just don't know the material as well to know what are some of the content-specific strategies you might use. The self-contained folks, it's kind of the same thing. So we've got the 3 AD units, or the 3 MH autistic units. Yep, we got the self-contained CD, self-contained ED. So they meet as well as a group. And we thought that made sense just because they often have different grade levels in the same room. So they've got to think about differentiation, and they might be able to share some expertise around that. But the 4 departments are all clustered by department.
Okay. And is there, do they rotate the lead, or is it more just kind of, okay?
They do. So the way we structured it was, I did ask for one person to be kind of the team facilitator, but by and large, it's whoever's presenting that week. And we did that on purpose. We wanted them to take ownership of the data and of the meeting because it's really about helping them. And I felt like if we had someone else constantly facilitating for them, they could be passive. And I don't want them to be passive. I want them to really own, like, this is mine, good or bad. And like, I need to fix this, so help me. And that's worked pretty well. You know, one time I had a teacher come up prepared, we, you know, documented